Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome to today's DevOps.com webinar, brought to you by Techstrong, AWS, and PagerDuty. My name is Cody J. Brown. I'm the host of Techstrong Learning. We have an exciting presentation ahead, but first I have just a couple of housekeeping notes to cover. First, today's session is being recorded, so if you miss any of our discussion or you'd like to rewatch or share with a friend, the on-demand recording will be made available shortly after we conclude our live session. If you have any questions, we want you to send those into the Q&A tab on the right side of the screen. We plan on addressing all your questions about 30 minutes into the webinar, so feel free to send those in soon, and we'll factor time in to make sure we get to them. On the right side of the screen, that's also where you'll find the chat tab. This tab is where we want you to engage with us, engage with your fellow audience members. Just let us know your thoughts throughout today's program. I will also point your attention to the handouts tab, where you'll see a couple of resources that have been added to aid in today's information. And finally, before we close out, we will be giving away 4 $25 Amazon gift cards, so be sure to stick around to the very end. So our topic today is Supercharge your AWS cloud platform with self-service cloud ops. And I'm joined by Mandy Walls, DevOps advocate for PagerDuty, and Mark Krioff, Partner Solutions Architect at AWS. Mandy, Mark, thank you both so much for being here with me. Mandy, I'll let you take it from here. Let's get your screen shared.
Excellent. Thank you, Cody. We're happy to be here today. This is Supercharge your AWS cloud platform with self-service cloud ops. I am Mandy Walls. I am a DevOps advocate at PagerDuty, and with me today is Mark Krioff. Mark, welcome.
Hi, Mandy. Great to be here. My name is Mark Krioff. I am a Partner Solutions Architect at AWS.
Awesome. And we're going to just dig right into it, right? Because we know for all of us, cloud adoption is higher than ever. In their cloud computing survey, IDG talked to IT professionals who were involved in cloud spending, and they found that 59% of their respondents plan to increase cloud computing spend over the 12-month period they were looking at. That's a lot, right? Not only are businesses investing in the cloud, they're going all in. In another survey, O'Reilly found that 47% of their respondents said that their organizations are pursuing a cloud-first strategy. They're not even considering legacy or other options. They're looking first to the cloud. It doesn't happen overnight, though, right? O'Reilly also found that 48% of their respondents said they plan to migrate 50% or more of their applications to the cloud in the coming year. So organizations are still managing hybrid infrastructures. They're managing complexity that are associated with these migrations and all these sort of bifurcated solutions that they're working across for all of their customer applications. Mark, you work with a lot of AWS customers. How have these trends impacted the folks that you work with?
Yeah, so the main impact when we're talking about moving to the cloud is around migrations and how teams are looking today in comparison to what would look in the future. So things like adopting DevOps is sometimes a challenge for a lot of companies who are doing this lift and shift into the cloud, enabling different teams to talk to each other, to communicate more efficiently instead of siloed. This is the main things or main challenges we see when we're talking about cloud adoption. I'm happy to say that from my perspective and my experience, we see more and more companies changing fast or changing more rapidly towards this improved way of working. So, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds great. It sounds like everyone's right in the trend there. So a lot of folks are using cloud in some capacity, right? Maybe they're not all in, maybe they're still experimenting, but we're looking at all of the benefits of the cloud, right? We're looking for more speed, increased velocity for our end-to-end innovations. We have lower upfront investments. I don't have to wait for the racks to come into the data center. We have this tremendous flexibility across lots of offerings that I don't have to install in my own facilities and then worry about. So accelerating all of this cloud adoption really requires thinking about all the heavy lifting we used to do, right? And how that all comes into play, and putting it in a place where we can focus on innovation rather than dealing with all of the toil. Mark, when you're working with AWS customers, do they stall? Do they find a place that, they're maybe not working as fast as they want to be?
Yes, in a lot of cases, from my experience, what I saw is that a lot of customers are struggling with changing their mindset on how they used to do infrastructure on-prem, and how can they do infrastructure in the cloud. So things like using more and more custom-made the scripts, and instead of generalizing or making things more generic, and using manual deployments instead of automating with infrastructure as code. These are the main kind of hardships that I've seen when we talk about moving to the cloud. But again, it's more of a change of a mindset, because we used to do things in a very certain way, and now this new thing works in a different way, and it takes a while to adapt. But when the customers adapt those new technologies, those new ways of working, we see a huge increase in innovation, and just enabling people to do new things, to come up with new features, new products, in a faster way, in a quicker way, essentially.
Are there best practices that you share with folks that are making these transitions to help them be faster or smoother?
Yeah, so my main thing, the main thing I share with people when we talk about migrations, or we're talking about the lift and shift, or how to enable themselves in the cloud, is to think in an automatic way. So to reduce the amount of manual interaction or manual changes that we do, write everything, all the infrastructure that you do, as code, and leverage CI/CD flows to deploy your infrastructure and deploy not only your application also. So this is the main thing I share. And another thing is, make sure to enable your teams. Make sure that teams can do what they need to do without having to ask 7 other different people for authorization or access and things like that. And if they do need to ask for access, again, automate the flows. Make sure that everybody is enabled to work at their own pace.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, so from that perspective, when we talk about AWS, we have more than 250 services today, and when we talk about innovation, AWS provides like a tiered approach to how you can maintain your infrastructure and services in the cloud. So you have the basic fully self-managed kind of services, like EC2 or things like or similar, where customers are controlling almost every aspect of the infrastructure. They can configure it on their own, choose their own operating system, control scaling, and so forth. And the middle tier is services like EKS, where AWS is removing the hard or the major infrastructure scaling issues, or major infrastructure scaling calculation, and gives the customer sort of a middle ground between completely managing their infrastructure and mainly focusing on their application and innovation. And the third tier are completely managed services, for example, Lambda, where we can enable developers to just focus on code, focus on innovation, focus on the application without having to take care of infrastructure, without having to take care of scaling, completely done automatically in the background. And we see from that, a lot of companies are spending less time on things like configuring or deployments, and more time focusing on listening to what their customers want from the application, adding features, and innovating essentially.
Yeah, that's great. Getting the full benefit of going to the cloud in the first place. It's fantastic. But we know for some of these organizations that are working in a hybrid environment, right? They haven't moved all of their stuff to the cloud. They might be trying to bring some of their baggage along, right? Once you've got customers and commitments and compliance concerns, there's, maybe a need to create a cloud operations team that's going to help you manage the cloud on behalf of everyone else in the organization. They'll be the experts in all those 250 services that AWS provides. And often our organizations that migrate sort of like Mark mentioned, like find themselves sort of hampered by, thinking about automation, thinking about how folks are going to be using things most efficiently, and maybe haven't gotten to a point where they haven't standardized their IT procedures for operability, thinking in the cloud versus thinking on-prem. So less mature or operations sort of manifest in, the reactionary manual procedures, like you're just learning it and you're going to do it by hand, fine. But if you start putting stuff behind slow ticket queues, you're going to slow everyone down and not get the full advantage of working in the cloud. So your system availability goals, start to suffer. You're not getting all of the amazing benefits you can get out of the cloud if you're treating it just the same way you would if you were on-prem. So cloud can change everybody's workflows for the better if we let it, right? And so we think about how we run our cloud operations. Are we operating what we call ticket time? Someone's putting in a ticket, waiting for someone on the other end to pick it out of the queue and look at it and say, okay, we'll do this one right now. Or are you, getting the full value of agility in the cloud? And as Mark mentioned, there's a lot of automation and a lot of thinking in an automated first way for working in these new environments. Doesn't mean we don't have automation today. We definitely do. Lots of places have a lot of automation, but it either works in its own little niche or it doesn't provide wide enough access to all the stakeholders that really could benefit from the use of the automation. Like some of the tools that are on the slide here are kind of complex. You need a bit of specialized knowledge. They mainly only work in one particular workflow or one piece of your environment, and they're focused on very specific problems. So when we look at things from a more generic way across the entire organization, as our business grows and the amount of the business that we're doing in the cloud grows, so do the requirements we need to meet, and so do the folks who want to work in the cloud or have things they need to get done in the cloud. The start of your project that just involves some developers, right? They kind of know, hey, I need to put this on a CPU somewhere. I need to get it to run. And they have pretty simple needs that they're going to meet those requirements pretty easily with, as Mark mentioned, some of those tier one sort of solutions. They're going to be more productive, get access to their services faster, and they kind of know what's going on enough to be functional. And as we get to the place where there's more things deployed and customers and end users are making use of it, you might have additional requirements, right? Things that other teams might also need to interact with the stuff that you've got in the cloud. You might have customer support teams that need to interface with existing customers. Maybe there's billing and legal teams that will have some kind of interactions or requirements that will go through the same funnel as well. In this middle growth stage, your developers, your customer teams, maybe they're responsible for day-to-day operations. So more developers will also need to be onboarded to learn about how they manage their services when they get into production, when they're living in the cloud. So there's lots of additional requirements, lots of additional access that needs to be granted. And then when you get to, say, an optimization phase, you get to scale, right? You're providing more efficiency all across the organization. It includes supporting your customer success teams. You've got maybe billing and more legal things that folks need to know about. You might have compliance operations that you're working on. You might have audits that you want to conduct across the infrastructure. And you want to provide a better experience for all of those folks, regardless of how much they actually know about what's going on in the cloud infrastructure. And that's where we get to some gaps that we want to think about, right? We think about this as a place for automation to start to look at into filling, right? We kind of categorize these into three kinds of what we call gaps, right? We have a knowledge gap where you can spin up a lot of different services. You've got 250 potential services to use in AWS. I don't know what they all are. Your staff probably doesn't know what they all are. And it's going to create a lot of potential for innovation and lots of things that people can do, but it's a whole lot of stuff that your team might not know about. Following that, you might have a skills gap. A lot of the automation provided by cloud providers requires specific expertise, right? Do you have folks on your team who know how to use CloudFormation? Do you have folks on your team who know how to use the AWS CLI? They're pretty complex tools, and you want to think about how much time you want to spend onboarding all of these different people into knowing how to use them, right? And then you have an access gap, and this one's kind of here on purpose, right? You probably have compliance and reporting requirements that say not everybody gets to touch production. So your security standards dictate that you've got privileged access controls around what gets into production and how it gets touched when maybe there's something wrong or it's time to do a deploy. So you'll be thinking about how to actually protect that access gap while still crossing knowledge and skills. And this is where PagerDuty's process automation portfolio is going to help you out, right? We're going to help you, get to all these things for all the users that are in your organization. It makes it possible for folks to string together technical functions into automated tasks, achieve all of your business outcomes, but in a safe way so that you can delegate tasks to other stakeholders, right? You're going to securely and safely delegate a piece of all of this work in a self-service way so that folks aren't waiting for tickets, right? They're not waiting for the specialist to come on board and pull their ticket out of the queue. By extending cloud automation to all these task levels, you're going to maintain and even improve all of your cloud agility across all those AWS services. Process automation is going to help you create operational APIs and tasks so your team can run at whatever speed you need, not at whatever speed the cloud operations team can provide for you, right? Not relying on that ticket time. Businesses can then accelerate their cloud operations by safely delegating all these automated IT workflows and operate faster within a standardized and safely delegated workflow. So you're producing runbooks for things like resolving incidents, fulfilling IT requests, deploying services, doing all these great things in AWS without having to need to know all the nitty-gritty details of how all that stuff works. So we're helping you speed up your operations by providing you infrastructure to get the benefits out of all of your cloud computing. With your business outcome oriented tasks, you get to see things like security and compliance improvements. You've got a full audit log of who did what, when, and where on the cloud. You get consistency of execution since the automation's already encapsulated into the tool. You don't have to worry about it. You get increased efficiency as fewer people are needed to complete tasks and you're not waiting for the tickets, right? You're working as fast as your developers can work and they're going to take care of all that stuff for you. So some use cases for PagerDuty process automation, a couple of big ones to call out. Self-service automation for cloud ops, really what we've been talking about. It's going to allow your developers to provision their own AWS environments, but in a standardized model so that all the dependencies can be preloaded. All the security settings are applied before the environment is made available to developers. And they don't have to know the security groups. They don't have to know which VPC is involved. They don't have to know specifically what AMI is used, because you're going to encapsulate all of that knowledge for them and just give it to them on a silver platter. So in addition to ensuring that your requirements are met, you can also control your costs, right? Because nobody is going to be loading up a bigger instance than what they really need, right? So your developers You can start coding right away, developing their stuff, providing new features, and doing their innovation instead of waiting around for things to happen from another team. Then we look at compliance, right? Compliance for cloud ops, really necessary for your environments. Every job execution in process automation is logged. That gives you an auditable history, and it's more directly aligned with your business activity. Alice came in and said, hey, I need a new environment for this particular project. It's going to be logged. Makes it easier and more optimal for your cloud operations teams to know what's going on, who loaded things up. If there's a question, they can go and ask those folks directly, right? And finally, looking at multi-account automation. This is a big one, right? So you have data segregation, you have account segregation. Maybe your developers have a development in non-production environments and are in a different account from production environments, or you have other reasons to have things split out. That creates a lot of complexity if you're doing things manually, right? But runbook automation makes it possible to safely delegate access for the same automated tasks, and you can then easily manage infrastructure across multiple accounts. So you can allow your customer success engineers to support customer environments without needing detailed knowledge across different infrastructure resources and all of these kinds of things. So it really gives all of the folks across your entire organization an abstracted interface to all the crazy details that are going on in the back end. So we're going to have a bit of a demo for you. So we'll see all of this in action.
Jake's team hosts a customized survey application for his customers that lets them conduct surveys and polls. Example capabilities include creating polls, adding polling choices, and setting expiration dates for when these polls close. The core application is the same for all customers, with various customizations being supported. Every so often, a customer asks for one of their custom features to be changed. For example, this time, a customer wants to change the name of their poll from Survey Mania to Polls for Days. Each customer's portal is clustered, so there are quite a few steps involved in this. And as with most other multi-step workflows that Jake's team is responsible for, they have documented this entire process as can be seen. In this case, you pull each instance out of the load balancer, stop the instance, make changes to the service, restart the service, verify that the change was successful, place the instance back in the load balancer, and then do the same for the second cluster in the instance. And of course, you're supposed to log all the work in Jira. Despite this being diligently documented, process issues cropped up along the way due to imbalance of expertise and experience on the team. While some preferred the documentation, the more tenured members switched to use CLI or the AWS Console, and others just wrote their own scripts. This led to access issues. Every so often, these documented workflows changed, but nobody was looking at the documentation anymore, having figured out their own methods. This is where PagerDuty Runbook Automation came in, effectively encapsulating all these steps into automated runbooks. Cloud-ready businesses like Jake's company can now accelerate operations by safely delegating automated IT workflows. This includes automating runbooks for use cases like Jake's, closing tickets, and fulfilling requests with the ease of running in the cloud. With runbook automation, you can delegate tasks by ensuring safety and compliance with authentication, access control, and privileged access management services, and by logging every automation activity. You can easily define jobs that incorporate common infrastructure components as nodes and execute steps utilizing existing scripts and commands. Now, any member of the team can run these tasks in an automated fashion without needing direct access to the underlying systems or API keys to things like Jira. This also means that all members of the team can fulfill these complex workflows efficiently without risk. As a best practice, now Jake's team looks out for tasks that repeat themselves regularly and have an advanced team member or automation engineer author a runbook like this for that workflow. It also ensures that everyone's activity is consistently logged as part of the workflow. The job also automatically updates into Jira. If this workflow needs an update at any point, the author can just update the job because the automation is effectively their documentation. In this example, we're trying to change the name of the polling app portal, so we enter the existing customer name as Survey Mania and then the updated customer name as Polls for Days. and he can run this job on one node or both. We can expand the running job to look at how it's going through the different steps of execution. We can also dive into AWS and look at the target group and see what's going on. Cluster number 1 has changed health status, and it repeats the same with cluster number 2, and he can also see that reflected back in the PagerDuty platform. Going back to our polling app portal, we see that the name has successfully changed from Survey Mania to Polls for Days. And now if I take a look at Jira, we can see that a ticket has been created and also resolved once the job is successfully done with the updated notes. So we can see how Runbook Automation, given its architecture, can operate at the platform layer by taking instances in and out of ELBs, and at the OS layer by changing app configs, and can seamlessly integrate with SaaS apps where the job can be invoked by Jira Cloud. PagerDuty Runbook Automation has successfully cut down the time that it took to execute these tasks manually. But more importantly, it has also ensured that every team member, regardless of tenure and expertise, has been able to seamlessly execute every step of the required workflow and standard operating procedure.
Thanks for joining us today. If you're interested in learning more about the products we discussed, please request a demo via the links we've added in the handouts. We would love to talk to you and your team about all the things that process automation can help you do in your AWS environment. All of these products are also available in the AWS Marketplace. That link will also be available. And at PagerDuty in general, we have lots of integrations with AWS. So if you're interested in a more self-paced experience, you can check out our workshop that will be in the handouts, and that will give you more of an overview for how AWS and PagerDuty work together directly. Mark, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
This has been great. We'll hand it back to Cody to hand out some gift cards.
So Mandy and Mark, let me have you turn your webcams back on real quick to do some quick Q&A. But while you do that, I will go ahead and give away those 4 gift cards.
Great.
So these are for 4 $25 Amazon gift cards. Our first winner is Joel H. Our second winner is Anthony A. Our third winner is Harsha V. And our fourth and final winner is James P. So to the 4 of you, congratulations. Please keep an eye on your inbox to claim your gift card. And if you don't find that email, keep an eye on your spam folder. So Mark, Mandy, thank you so much for joining me back up on the screen. Let's see if we got any questions. This first one reads, if I am an AWS user, how do I get PagerDuty set up?
Yeah, so there's a couple of easy ways. The first easy way is to use the marketplace offer. So you can directly procure PagerDuty directly from AWS and have it all in one consolidated billing. And I'll put the link in the chat as soon as we're done. Another way is using our workshop. Our workshop is a self-paced documentation to show you how to set up PagerDuty on AWS, how to set up specific features, how to leverage automation and EventBridge in it, and yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, excellent. And if you have PagerDuty already, the integrations also work. You can hook in your existing AWS environments as well via the various integrations.
Awesome. So our next question reads, what kind of projects should I do first?
All the projects. No, like it kind of varies, right? Like some folks want to jump into big projects like this and say, okay, this is the thing that makes the most noise or that is the most difficult for me. But you kind of want to temper that with maybe looking for something that isn't maybe directly in your line of fire, but is still provides value, because what you want to show is that what you're working on is going to improve things and improve more value for your team. And it can vary. Like lots of places have gone with their cloud migrations and their automation projects as a greenfield experience, right? And so you're kind of leaving behind all of the prior assumptions and sort of going in with all new ideas and exploring and experimenting. And that works great in some organizations. Other places are looking to get more from brownfield. So it comes down to making sure that the project or the application that you're looking for is actively being maintained. Because what you don't want to do is try and bring all of your old stuff in first when there's nobody available to make changes. So if the code isn't actively being maintained and you need something updated or upgraded so that it fits better into the cloud platform, you don't want to get stuck in a dead end there.
Awesome, thank you. I am seeing a comment about the handouts. It looks like they weren't viewable at first. I have triggered those to be shared, so they should be viewable now. Feel free to download those and check out those associated links. So our next question reads, do I need PagerDuty to use process automation?
You don't need it, but you need PagerDuty anyway. They're separate products. You can run them separately. They fit in different places, but they work very well together. So you'll get a lot of benefit out of using them together. But if you have just one or the other, that's great. You can purchase them separately, whatever fits your organization's requirements there.
And so, Mark, it looks like you did respond to this specific question, but I'll go ahead and bring it up. AWS has tons of automation. What more do we need?
So yeah, to elaborate on that, my main purpose was around actually using automation. So in a lot of cases, yes, there is automation, but customers or just people who migrate into the cloud, they still kind of use their old scripts, their old, on-prem methodologies, which are just not compatible and require a lot of manual change. So yes, there are a lot of options, and it's important to actually pick one. That was the point.
Awesome. Thank you, Mark. I'm not seeing any more questions at this point in time, so I'll remind the audience that this would be a great time for you to send in any last-minute questions you may have. But Mandy and Mark, is there anything that you'd like to leave our audience with before we close out for the day?
So yeah, from my side, please have a look at the workshop, the PagerDuty workshop. You can easily send feedback there about your experience. It's completely self-paced, and I think it's a great opportunity to test out and check how PagerDuty is doing with your organization. Yeah, and that's from my side. Mandy?
Yeah, the workshop is a great experience to go through. If you have the time and you'd like to learn more about PagerDuty and the way some of our customers work with it, we have a set of events coming up in June called PagerDuty Summit. You can find that on our website. You can join us live or virtually and to learn more about PagerDuty and AWS together, as well as what other folks are using those solutions for.
And don't forget the PagerDuty Summit that is coming up in 2 weeks.
Yes, the first one is the 7th of June.
How exciting. Well, awesome. Mandy, Mark, thank you both so much for joining us today. I'd like to quickly remind our audience that this session was recorded. So if you happen to miss any of our discussion or you'd like to rewatch, you will receive an email shortly with a link to access the on-demand recording. You can also find this webinar living on the DevOps website at devops.com/webinars, and be sure to look in the on-demand section. So I would like to thank AWS and PagerDuty for making today's webinar possible. Again, Mandy and Mark, thank you for being here with us. And before we close out, I'd like to thank our audience for joining us for today's webinar. Please, we just ask for one extra moment to fill out a brief post-webinar survey that should pop up on your screen here in just a moment. But otherwise, we hope to see you at an upcoming Techstrong Learning workshop or webinar. Everyone, have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.